Fine, he said and walked out of the washroom when they trailed behind him. When they both were in the bedroom, their eyes fixed on the bed before they clashed together. Jungkook could see the color on cheeks of his wife, and he felt his muscles were tight once again. He watched Tae as he avoided his gaze, blushed, and fight with his feet. There were a ghost of embarrassment smile on Tae's lips, and he had urged to smirk at him, but that reality struck him. They left the bed first. In the morning, he regretted getting over yourself. He thought and walked over the door, trying not to yank it out, and he opened it. 5 minutes. He sat over his shoulder and clicked the door shut behind him. They placed his cold hand on his warm cheeks. He was blushing so hard that he was afraid his face would be on fire in a few seconds. They were looking for business once again. Please, just stick to my side and do not answer any of their questions, Jungkook suggested, looking at the reporters around his car. They stopped outside the hospital. They swallowed and nodded. When will I get to use of this? Jungkook got out of the car, and one of the guards opened the door. He fixed his eyes on the floor, and Jungkook approached him. The guards surrounded, and he wrapped his arms around his waist and walked inside, his hand on his waist. They had been the last time. They looked down, hiding his blush and tried not to give any about his thoughts. When they were about to go inside, someone or a reporter grabbed Jungkook's arm and turned him around, snapping his picture. They clubbed at him and grabbed their hand. Before walking inside like they were fired outside, they breathed once again. Tell me about it. Jungkook sighed. Don't you get annoyed by them? They asked. Sometime he shrugged and dragged him toward the related room. They was now worried and nervous. He saw his in-laws were sitting on the couch inside the room, along with a woman he disliked so much, Sophia. What was she doing here? They ignored her, and lastly his eyes were on the person on the bed. He was pale and had a bandage around his head. They felt a tug in his heart upon seeing him, but when the thought was struck him, he gasped aloud. What if there was not an accident? What if those people were trying to hurt Jungkook or their target? They thought, and hide his face. In Jungkook, they looked at the horror, and he gave him that look and grabbed his hand. How did it happen? They asked. Highway. He ran a hand through his hair. He told me to pick him up to the place because the car wasn't able. On the way back to office, a random car would crash with ours. Jungkook flew out of the front class, whereas only my right side was injured. I contacted the police about the issue because the car was disappeared after the crash. He informed. Do you think it was intentional? They asked, and Jungkook looked at the uneasy form and shift on his face. He ignored the eyes and said, You could say that, he mumbled, and they took his hand and turned to face Tae. Whatever Jungkook told Tae and crushed back in his mind, and they started freaking out. They wanted him dead. Cook, do you contact police? What did they say? This is not normal. Jungkook said there are some people. You remember when you found me talking with Jungkook in the living room? Jungkook placed his hand on Tae's shoulder and shook his head lightly. Tae, what are you talking about? Jungkook, he said there are people trying to kill Dad. He cried, ignoring Jungkook's wide eyes. He said he never wanted to tell anyone because he was being threatened, and he needed to tell me because they were about us. They snapped, and Jungkook didn't understand what they were saying. He said, when you got hit by the rock on your head, it was not an accident. Now he told me everything. And look, those people hurt him. They cried. Jungkook was gaping at Tae in horror. He looked at him, and when he hugged Tae to his chest, tried to calm him down, thinking about the next step. What the hell was he going to do now? There had been time when things fell a little out of his hand. He couldn't do anything on the spot and handed them. There had been the time when it took so long to decide. He had never ever felt so helpless in his life before. Jungkook had no idea where he turned, right or left. But sides looked clueless, and his mind was messed up. Jumped up he signed and rubbed his hand. He sat on the couch beside his crying mother. He understood their concern and worried. He was aware that how she was feeling. Her son was called out after all, but Jungkook couldn't stop that for snooping inside his mind. He heard that sniffed and mumbled sound of his mother, who would cry to anything but her of them. He ground his teeth and glared at his mother. Mom, please, would you stop crying? You sent Dad home telling him that you were okay, and all you have done is shed tears. What is the point of this? He is not dead. His tone had been cold, and he regretted. But he was so angry on so many things. His wife, who was caused his headache lately because of ignorance, and then the accident that happened. He was sick of this drama in their life and wanted it to end it. Miss John looked at him and wiped the cheeks. They said that mood of his husband and other, but Rome shook his head, stepped ahead to console that poor woman. He stood beside her and smiled. You should go home. I will call you as soon as you wake up. And doctor said he is all right. Don't worry, Mom. They smiled gently at her. Miss John nodded and returned his smile before she gave Jungkook a look and walked to her young son. She kissed her cheeks and walked out of the room. You should have been a little. You are not the only one. He rolled his eyes at annoyed behavior and sat down at the other end of the coach. Jungkook head was whipped toward Tae and he glared at him. He knew Tae was right, but his huge pride didn't let him remain quiet. And you? You could have been a little more, while telling me the detail of the reason for accident. His tone were, and they clenched his fist. They gave him a hard look and clenched their teeth. I promised him, Jungkook. He made me promise not to tell anyone, and that include you, especially you. This night, he had having temper tantrums since they had blurted out the truth in front of him. He was being childish and they had never been more annoyed by him. Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't know you were sharing secrets with your ex, he hissed. He had been so rude to Tae today, and Tae was not so over it. His word didn't even hurt anymore, because he would sing hurtful and stupid thing for hours now. I'm not crying, Tae, and he is my brother. Stop crying, as he is trying. They didn't have energy and left to put up with stupid. He just strongly disliked him right now. He was afraid that it might leave a major fight if he answered him. They thought if he just painfully ignored him, maybe he would stop nonsense, at least try to put himself at the place. But no such thing happened. Was it so wrong for him to worry about a human being? Even they never knew Jungkook. He still worried for his health because he was a human, a living soul. Jungkook had contacted police right away after he told the half-truth, and they would be here in few hours. Everyone was just waiting for Jungkook to wake up. They your brother you're talking about. He might be my ex, but he is your brother first. And you have some in the situation at least. He's battling on the bed, and your jealousy is getting best of you. He crossed his arm and spoke calmly, fixed his eyes on the vase in front of him. Say who? He mocked. Remember, when I merely talked to Sophia, you were dead set, making my life hell because of your jealousy. They felt his tug on his harsh word, but said nothing and showed nothing on his face. I didn't want to remind you of your deed, but I do think she is far better for you than me. You both are alike and would make a pretty couple. They shrugged. His voice was so cold as it freezed the room. Yeah, maybe, he hissed.